We were first to land on the moon, map the human genome, and now we're harnessing AI to transform the future. We go further, live better, think smarter when government, universities, and industry collaborate to advance America's edge. At the Hopkins Bloomberg Center, we convene policymakers, global leaders, and academic experts in the heart of the nation's capital to transform knowledge into tangible solutions. We're building on 150 years of groundbreaking research at Johns Hopkins. Research that led to GPS technology, the first artificial heart implant, and successfully redirected an asteroid. Now, help shape the future through new ideas and partnerships. Explore emerging tech, experience art and performances, engage with new perspectives, and be part of what's next. The Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center. Join us in securing the next 150 years of world-changing impact.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Stories That Matter film series here at the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center, where we're celebrating the university's 150th anniversary. Here at our home in the heart of the nation's capital, Johns Hopkins convenes a diversity of viewpoints to foster discovery and dialogue, connects evidence-based research with policy, and educates the next generation of civic leaders. Tonight's film, the Academy Award-winning documentary short, All the Empty Rooms, follows a journalist and a photographer who set out to memorialize empty bedrooms left behind by children who never returned home following school shootings. The impactful storytelling of this film embodies the ethos of the Stories That Matter film series by highlighting the role that art plays in fostering dialogue about critical issues. Gun violence in schools affects all of us, irrespective of partisan affiliation or gerrymandering or demographics. Last year, there were at least 163 incidents of gunfire on school grounds nationally, resulting in 54 deaths and nearly 150 injuries. In the first few months of this year, there have already been at least 24 incidents of gunfire on school grounds responsible for 7 deaths and 10 injuries. These statistics do not even include the incalculable number of times that guns are brought to school but not discharged, or the number of false alarms and related incidents that result in lockdowns, SWAT teams clearing classrooms, and other disturbing disruptions to life and learning. Following tonight's screening, we will welcome to the stage the film's director, Joshua Seftel, along with two-time survivor and advocate Mia Tretta, co-director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions, Cass Crifasi, and moderator Sig Libowitz, director of the film and graduate film and media program at the Johns Hopkins Krieger School of Arts and Sciences. I want to thank them all for being here, as well as the film's co-producer, Avi Bant. We're also grateful to Netflix for the opportunity to bring this powerful film to our Johns Hopkins audience. Our Center for Gun Violence Solutions conducts critically important research, communications, and polling to provide evidence-based resources that contribute to the health and safety of all Americans. For years, the center has worked to translate those efforts into tangible solutions. We know, thanks to our federally funded research from NIH and CDC, that safe storage saves lives. We also know we can promote safe storage by meeting people where they are. So thanks to the support of Baltimore's Congressman Kwesi Mfume, Johns Hopkins received federal funding to distribute gun safes and locks in our emergency department and through community engagements across Baltimore. In fact, while Baltimore has seen historic reductions in its gun violence trends over the last 2 years, thanks to a citywide coordinated effort, this new initiative will dovetail with a multi-million-dollar investment announced last year to build on Johns Hopkins' longstanding commitment to helping Baltimore further reduce violent crime. The program will support new projects focused on improvements in community spaces, workforce development, wraparound social services, and violence prevention and interruption. These types of policy solutions don't happen in a vacuum. It takes people from all disciplines to raise awareness and make an impact, which is why we elevate issues like this here at the Hopkins Bloomberg Center through free programming like tonight's screening and discussion, where we're using film to bridge research and policy. If you want to stay connected to us on Stories That Matter and other arts and culture programming, please scan the QR code behind me to sign up for our newsletter. And now, please join me in welcoming to the stage the director of the Graduate Film and Media Program at Johns Hopkins, Sig Libowitz.
Oh, I heard a woo. Thank you very much. To my wife or mother-in-law, whichever it was, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and welcome to the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg Center and to this incredible theater. I've always loved theaters because they're this space where we communally come and we experience something together. We sit around a fire, or in this case, the light of a screen, and the space comes alive with us. I'm going to talk about more of that in a second, but before I go anywhere, a couple announcements and thank yous. So first of all, I've been asked to ask everybody, I know you've never heard this before, to please silence your cell phones. We would greatly appreciate it. But also, it takes a family and a team to make a film, and it does the same thing to put on a program like this. So I really want to thank the team here at the Hopkins Bloomberg Center. You've already met Sibel, thank you, but also Sally O'Brien and Sloan Prince, Christina Benjamin, Shemaim Nkojo, Carly Spraggins, Kelsey Chase, Catherine Alvarez, Pole Bravo, and as a farewell to her, Corinna Halverson. I also want to thank our incredible theater team. You guys are great. It's led by Joe Hagan, Aaron Eaton, and Adam Scalisi. You guys know I could not do this without you, so thank you. I also really have to put a huge thank you to someone who's the co-programmer with me of this session. She couldn't be here tonight, but she had a huge role in making all the empty rooms happen, and she's just a force to be reckoned with. Julia Pacetti, thank you, Julia, for everything, and you are a wonderful professional who loves film, and you are also a dear friend. I really want to thank another dear friend, Diana Shemo, and the Double Exposure Film Festival. We have had a long working relationship with the Double Exposure Film Festival, and Diane and I have a shared admiration and love for this film, Josh. So we had to duke it out, but you should know you have two real fans here for you and your work. I also have to thank our sister program here at Johns Hopkins. You know, it's such an incredible organization. You're constantly, every day, finding out other things that Johns Hopkins does. And here, as you heard from Sibel, the Center for Gun Violence Solutions does amazing work. And it's a pleasure, as mentioned, we're going to have Cass Crifasi, who is the co-director of the program here as a panelist, but the whole team there has been great. I particularly want to thank Sarah Ryans and Joe McHugh and Shakun Kashal for their help. You've made this really easy. I also have to point out that the center and the film have a unique relationship. There's this incredible nonprofit called Subject Matter. And they go out and they find these incredible documentaries that shine a light on an important social matter. And then they do a co-matching grant with that film and another organization whose whole work focuses on that, and they work together. And so at the Hamptons Film Festival, Josh's film, All the Empty Rooms, won a major award and a grant, and they teamed them up with the center here at Johns Hopkins. So congratulations to both of you on that. And finally, I want to thank our special guests, Joshua Seftel, the director. I guess I can say Academy Award-winning director now. There you go. And Avi Bond, who's a co-producer on the film. Congratulations to you too, Avi, and thank you for everything. I have been following this film now for over 6 months, and I am deeply moved by this film. And there's a lot that I love about it. We're going to talk about that after the film. I don't want to give anything away. But one of the things that I love, Josh, is how this film explores and reveals and examines spaces. We talked about a theater as a space. What makes a space? You know, it's more than 4 walls and a ceiling and a floor. What inhabits that space? You know, what makes your special place and special space, a special space. What makes your kids. And I think Josh and the film do a beautiful job, deftly and delicately and respectfully letting us into these spaces, these rooms that are empty. And yet, I thank you for coming out tonight. This is a really special movie. We're really proud to have it here. We talk about why stories that matter. And it's because, we teach all these classes in the graduate film program that I love, cinematography, lighting design, color correction, editing, audio design and mixing, all these things around game design. But at the end, it all comes down to stories. Right? Storytelling that matters. And often when we do a film here, I'll talk about why this film, is a story that matters. But tonight, with this film and this direction, they speak for themselves. So with that, we are very proud at Johns Hopkins and at Stories That Matter to present to you All the Empty Rooms. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's hard after that film, but I'm really glad we can all be here, like we talked about together, to talk about it. But let's please start off. Congratulations, Josh, on this incredible. And please know we're going to, as you may have heard, we're going to have this panel discussion, and then there's a reception afterwards. So I hope you'll stay. We have an incredible panel here. In addition to obviously Josh, who you now know, we are joined by Cass Crifasi, who is the co-director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions. And we're very happy to have you here. We talked about the incredible work that the center does, and they have given out these little postcards tonight, which I urge you to please take a look at. We are also deeply appreciative and honored to have with us Mia Tretta, who is a wounded survivor and advocate. Mia is a survivor of 2 school shootings, one in high school, and one not that long ago at Brown University. It means a great deal for you to be here and to share your experiences. Absolutely. So, Josh, I would love to. It's just such a brilliant film, and I talked a little bit before about what I think you and Lou Bopp with his photography did to capture spaces and rooms and to imbue them with something. Could you talk about what that was like as the director, how you entered these rooms and what you wanted to accomplish with that? Please.
Sure, and thank you for having us, Sig. This is a real honor to be here. The rooms really grew out of an idea that Steve Hartman had, which was he was trying to figure out, as you saw in the film, a new way to talk about this issue. And he decided to write letters to every family who lost a child to school shooting since Sandy Hook. And he got several yeses. And then he approached me and said, "Do you think there might be a film in this?" And I said, "I think there is." That was exactly 3 years ago. And we set out on the road together. And when we first approached the storytelling in the rooms, the way I thought about it was, how do we capture the life of each child? How do we tell their story through what's left behind, through the objects, through the space, and how do we let the world know who these children were? And that's what the parents wanted, the parents that agreed to be in the film. That's what they agreed to, was we want our child to be known. We don't want them to be forgotten. And so we were focused on that. But when the film came out, I think we began to understand that there was something about these rooms that is universal, is incredibly powerful. You know, someone said about this film, they said, you know, when you read a headline and you see maybe a photo of a kid, you think, okay, that's someone else's child. But when you see these photos of the bedrooms, you say, this is my child. This could be my child. And there's something about the objects that are so familiar and so tangible and so universal that we relate to it in a different way that goes far beyond any kind of political debate. And that's what I feel and sense from watching this film with lots and lots of audiences the last 6 months.
I also want to talk to you about, as a director, we think of directors and we think of like flashy camera moves and signature styles. And I think what's so amazing is the restraint you do in this film. You use the bravery of that restraint and the bravery of silence in this movie. How did you get to that point? What was the decision making that led you there?
Well, there's definitely a simplicity to the film. We kept the crew very small. Often it was just one camera person going in the room. I would sometimes even be outside the room with a monitor watching, and Avi Bond, who's here, the co-producer, was with us, and we would sometimes people would wait in the car when we were filming because we wanted to keep the footprint so small. We really did not want to draw attention to ourselves or invade the space in any way. And you saw like Lou always took his shoes off when he entered the rooms, and we tried to show the utmost respect. When we began to put the film together, we just discovered that like less was always more. And we reached a point where we had a cut of the film that was about 34 minutes long, which is what the length is now. But we realized there was too much, and we just started to cut away the dialogue, the people talking. We just started cutting it back and cutting it back. And over time, I think we cut about 6 minutes of dialogue out of the film, but we left the film at 34 minutes. So essentially what we did is we added 6 minutes of silence and space for all of us to experience the rooms and to have our own thoughts and to just inhabit these rooms. And we found that just made the film more powerful as we took things away rather than adding them.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing. And what we talked about was spaces and then giving space it's really meaningful. Mia, obviously this film I know holds a special place for you because why don't you talk to us about your relationship with Dominic? Dominic is one of the children in the film.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. Dominic was the first student that you saw in the film, and his room was bright and bold and filled with SpongeBob and color, and that was very much his personality as well. You know, it looks from the outside almost obnoxious and silly, but that was Dominic. And we met on my first day at a new school. I knew no one. And I was terrified and very much, the type of person that followed every single rule to an annoying point. And Dominic was quite the opposite. And we met in math class, and by the middle of the year, the teacher had separated us, but he wouldn't stop throwing things across the classroom to me, so she just put us back together and said, it doesn't even matter at this point, which would have, a year prior, sunken my teacher's pet heart. And Dominic and I had the privilege of being best friends for just over a year. And it was because he was stolen because of gun violence. My mom is here today, and I remember the first time that she met Dominic, to give you a sense of his personality, if the thousands of SpongeBob memorabilia wasn't enough. We were at a Kohl's and randomly ran into Dominic, where he introduced himself as my boyfriend, just because he knew that I had never had a boyfriend before and I would be mortified. So Dominic, I think, of course, holds a special place in my heart as my best friend and as the only person I could ever find to, memorize a 15-minute handshake with me, that we would do every single time we saw each other. But also, I think, holds a special place in everyone who ever had the privilege of meeting him, their heart, because he was fun and quirky, and he was 14 years old but obsessed with SpongeBob, and he'd come into school every day being the most true version of himself. And he would be late to every class to walk his friends there. He would leave class early just to walk me out of school if I had a doctor's appointment. He was the most loyal and true friend that you would ever know. And I think that one thing that this film does is gives you that picture, and gives you the picture for all of the children, and two of which I never had the honor of meeting. None of us did. And, most people in this audience never had the privilege of meeting Dominic either. And it's because of gun violence, and it's because of, the decades of government inaction that caused this. And I think Dominic's light has been spread to so many that we can now keep going forward with.
Obviously, most of us have never experienced a shooting, whether it be at a school shooting, and obviously there are many, many other shootings as well outside of school, but we don't know what that experience is, and you had to go through it twice. What would you like us to know about what that experience is like?
Yep. I think all of us live in this naive little bubble, myself included, that it will never be us. But unfortunately, gun violence doesn't care whether you live in the fanciest of suburbs or an inner city. They don't care if you are white or black, you make $2 million a year or $10 a year. It doesn't matter to gun violence. On November 14th of 2019, I was shot next to Dominic in the stomach. And it wasn't a week post-shooting where I was healed after I left the hospital. And it wasn't a month or 2 months later where I was, walking normal again and just doing fine. No. Being shot in a school shooting, or being a part of a school shooting in general, changes the trajectory of your entire life. Before the shooting, I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. We were just talking about it. I had dreams of going to Johns Hopkins.
It's not too late.
And technically I am an alum. I was telling Cass that I took the intro to surgery class before 9th grade. So as my alma mater, no. It changes the trajectory of your life. I knew nothing about gun laws or gun violence prevention before this shooting, aside from, we should definitely have gun sense laws. That's it. I knew nothing about ghost guns or what that word even meant. It changes you as a person, There's no way that it couldn't, having a .45 caliber bullet lodged in your stomach and trying to heal from that at the same time as grieving your best friend, grieving your loss of innocence. I was a 15-year-old girl whose biggest priorities was who I was going to ask to the Sadie Hawkins dance and whether or not they were going to say yes. And it changed to, what do I do when I'm on the ground and there's a bullet in my stomach? Or what's my mom's phone number because I dropped my phone and I don't know what to do. So I think we all live in this naive world to kind of save ourselves, because you can't walk around terrified 24/7. You wouldn't leave the house. But unfortunately, gun violence is very real, and we can't wait until it touches our family to be active. We can't wait until we have an empty room that we have to walk by every day. And for me, I tried to get as far away as possible from the Saugus shooting. In 2023, I graduated from Saugus and I started going to Brown. I'm a junior now, and in December, I was in my room getting ready to study for finals, definitely procrastinating. And suddenly, me and my friend got hundreds of texts first from friends saying active shooter in our engineering building, then from the school, and then calls from the school, and they didn't stop for almost an hour. And we were in lockdown from about 4 p.m. until the next morning. And again, a community I was a part of lost 2 students. Again, gun violence had shattered our community, our school, our student body at large, and it's because gun violence doesn't care. It doesn't care that I've already been shot in a school shooting. It can happen to anyone, anywhere. And that's the real reason why we can't just wait for it to happen to us. This is a problem that every single American, whether you are a lawyer or a filmmaker or a doctor, you can take action in the gun violence movement. And we need everyone, whether you know everything about gun sense policies or nothing, like I did when I started.
Obviously, now you do know a lot. You've become very much of an advocate. How has that changed your life, and where do you want to see that go?
Yeah, I think I learned very quickly that sitting in my house and doing nothing post-shooting was not going to heal me any faster. It wasn't going to bring Dominic back, and it wasn't going to fix anything. And I got involved with organizations from Sandy Hook Promise to Everytown for Gun Safety, Brady Unify, and was really able to make change not only in my community of Santa Clarita, but federally across the country. I started with Ghost Guns, which, if you don't know, are at the time were kits that were sold typically online, sometimes in gun shows, completely unregistered, no serial number, no background check, and they were considered legal in the US, this entire loophole that existed. And we were able to basically completely regulate those kits. And that action took years. And as an advocate, we've now seen that we need to move faster than technology, because 3D printed weapons, which are a new, better type of ghost gun, quicker type of ghost gun, are just on the rise. And I think for me, part of my healing has been learning about these 3D printed weapons or ghost guns or, gun laws in general, and teaching people about them, because I also was a 15-year-old girl who knew nothing about it, knew nothing about how to get involved or the fact that I even could. And I think being a part of this movement, I've been able to meet so many amazing advocates from different spheres, but also so many survivors like myself from across the country who understand what we're going through and understand that this needs to end. And I've been able to just kind of work with not only advocates and survivors, but people who just care about the cause, who say, I don't want my child to go through this. I don't want anyone to go through this, and take action. And whether that be through making a film like this, you obviously have never had a gun violence experience as close to home as I have. And it was your advocacy that led all of these people in this room, but also nationally, to see Dominic, to see the lives of people who were killed in school shootings, to make it real, to make it human. Because Dominic, Gracie, they're not statistics. They're real humans. There are people with families who grieve them every single day, and there's hundreds more like them across the country.
Cass, that's a tough act to follow. But if you would, could you tell us a little bit about what you guys do at the center? Because as I've been reading and learning, it's really fundamentally important, if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So at the Center for Gun Violence Solutions, we treat gun violence as the public health emergency that it is. Folks in this room, that probably resonates, but for a lot of people, they don't draw the connection that more than 45,000 people die from guns every year in the US, and that guns are the leading cause of death for kids and teens. More kids die from guns than cars or cancer. And so we really bring all of the tools of public health to address this problem, from research and education, but also policy advocacy, legal advocacy, communication. Because at a School of Public Health, we're really thinking about prevention. What can we do to understand the problem and keep this from happening. But we also bring objective and nonpartisan research to the table. We understand what works, what we can do to solve the problem, and we work so effectively to advance these policies both federally, but also in cities and states across the country.
And speaking of legislation, I mean, I know there's a lot going on right now, and if you could speak to some of that, both in terms of things we should be aware of, things that you might find that's an optimistic sign or that's a challenging sign, and particularly I know there's a lot happening right now in Virginia, right next to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the work of our center really coalesces around 5 key policies and programs that we think have the strongest evidence base to reduce violence. The core being firearm purchaser licensing. If you want to get a license to drive a car, you go take a test, you demonstrate that you can safely do so, you verify your identity, and then you go to a dealer, buy a car, and drive it off the lot. We want to do the same thing when it comes to purchasing firearms, making sure you're properly vetted, that you've undergone a background check and training before you walk into a gun store to buy a firearm. And this is one of the most effective policies that we could advance to reduce violence. It is associated with lower rates of homicide, suicide, mass shootings, shootings by police, domestic violence. Across the board, we see this being one of the most effective policies that we can advance. And we've had great success in Delaware and Washington, and we got really close in Virginia, but hopefully next year. We also look at safe storage, thinking about the responsibilities that come along with gun ownership and ensuring that people who have guns are storing them safely, because when young people use guns to harm themselves or others, most of the time those come from their home or the homes of family members or friends. And safe storage is so important to keep us safe in our homes, but also making sure guns are not stolen and used in the community. We also think about guns in public spaces. How do states regulate who can carry guns, where they can carry them, the kinds of guns that they can be carried, and how, open or concealed. And we look at the kinds of requirements for training and criminal histories that minimize the risks for allowing people to carry guns in public spaces. We also think about safe community violence intervention and thinking about how we can provide people with programs and resources and services that can interrupt cycles of violence, clean and green public spaces, and better use data to bring people to the table to prevent violence. And then firearm removal. There may be people who can legally buy guns, but for one reason or another may be at risk of harming themselves or others. And so we temporarily separate them from their firearms, whether that's domestic violence protection orders or extremist protection orders, but creating a civil process that allows people to petition the court to temporarily separate someone from their firearms to make sure they're not at risk of harming themselves or others. And we find these 5 policies that we work to advance across the country to be very effective, and the goal of our center is to reduce gun violence 30% by 2030.
Josh, I think one of the things that's so incredibly powerful about the film is it doesn't talk about the shooters. It doesn't talk about the politicians. It doesn't talk about anything but these kids in these rooms. And as I know we've talked about, if you notice, the film never mentions the word gun throughout. What was the decision for that? And how did we talked about, like, you don't want to just preach to the choir. How did you come about that? And what was the thought process through?
Yeah, well, as we were editing, there was a time where we had this discussion about, well, we need to talk about the political debate. And we even had a little section in the film where you could hear the voices of people debating and the different sides and points of view. And as the film got stronger and took more shape, I remember there was just a day where I said, like, why do we even have that in there? You know, why do we need that? Do we need it? And we took it out, and we realized, like, that the film just went from, like, here to here, because this film isn't about the political debate. It's about something bigger than that. The debate is a distraction. The reality is that we all agree that we want our children to be safe when they go to school. Everyone agrees with that. And we've somehow gotten to this place where we're arguing about it, but we all agree and we all want that. And the idea was maybe if we look at the cost of gun violence through these empty rooms, we can reset the conversation and try to start again and to actually feel the weight of this crisis, which is a preventable crisis, and to start the conversation over.
Yeah, so building off of your comment about how a lot of people agree, obviously we want to keep our kids safe. There's a common and false narrative that nobody agrees on how we can reduce gun violence. Nothing works and we can't get anybody to agree, so, let's move on to the next topic. But that's wrong. One of the things we do at our center is biannual public opinion polling. We ask people not, do you want more or less laws, or should laws be stronger or weaker? We ask really specific questions about those 5 policy priorities that I mentioned. And turns out when you get specific, you see really broad support. For most evidence-based policies, you see upwards of 75% support among US adults and at least 60% support among gun owners and Republicans. So we get distracted by where we don't agree or where there's debate rather than focusing on where there truly is a place to come together and move the issue forward.
Yeah, I think gun violence prevention is a completely nonpartisan issue because, maybe I'm the only person, but I don't think I've ever heard someone say, I want more people to get shot in school. And I think if people sat down and looked at the legislation that we're proposing, especially when it comes to safe storage, no responsible gun owner who owns guns just for the purpose of home protection or hunting or hobbyist anything would be against making sure that that gun stays safe, and would be against background checks, because if you can pass a background check, what's the problem with one? If you don't need that firearm for immediate mass destruction, what's wrong with the 2-week waiting period? And I think all of us, for the most part, agree on big issues. It's just the way that we talk about them. And if every single person had the opportunity to sit in one of these rooms or talk with one of these parents one-on-one, I don't know if they would walk away feeling the same way they did coming to the conversation.
I think that's what's the power of this film does, is it even avoids all that. It just gets to the, what do we want? These are our children. I think for me, just watching it as a parent who loves my kids, like, you're in that room. That room is so real. Like, I loved, again, with how you capture that. All the people who talked about the smells of their kids, the smells of the blanket, and that's so visceral. Do you remember the first time you saw the film?
Yeah, I saw it at Newport Film Festival, actually.
Do you remember what it felt like? What is that feeling when you saw it?
Yeah, I was there with about 20 Students Demand Action members from Brown, and I just feel like, this is a reality that I live every day. And I've sat down with Dominic's family countless times, and I've been in their house, and I've felt the connection one-on-one with people who have lost their children, Dominic and others, to gun violence. And I think this film gives the opportunity for everyone else to have that conversation, and for everyone in the country who's been fortunate enough not to meet a Nancy Blackwell, or anyone else's parent, and had to sit down and have that conversation and say, I'm so sorry. Anyone who's been privileged enough not to have to do that, it gives them the opportunity to sit with those families, to sit with the grief.
Josh, your film really just opens these doors into these rooms. And like I said, it's called All the Empty Rooms, but by the second time I saw it, it really left me with, are they empty? There's something there. I don't know if you felt that, or if you anything with that, or Cass, where does that come from? Where did that come from in the editing process?
Well, one of the things that I showed it to a friend, and he wrote me an email, and he said, these rooms are about the exquisiteness of life. And I hadn't thought of it that way, but it is exquisite. These little things that make up our lives and who we are. And there's something really beautiful about it. And and relatable and knowing, and we just feel it. Life is exquisite, and you see it in the lives of these children, and then you feel the absence, and there's something about that contrast, and that was something that we worked on in the edit. Was you feel the kids, you see the kids, and then they're gone, and I think it's that contrast that makes us feel the loss. And that's what we want people to walk away feeling and thinking about, because it doesn't have to be that way. We can change.
Thank you. We want to have time for audience questions. We have, if you notice, there's microphones, one on each side of the stage. If you'd like to ask a question, we would love to hear it and incorporate it. I do just want to say one thing. Again, it's called question and answer, but people came here tonight for the answers. So if you please could keep your question as a question and keep it short. That way we can get to more questions and more answers. But we welcome anybody. Please just come on up, and I'll ask another question while we wait for you. Thank you. Cass, for you, obviously so involved in this subject matter, and you see a lot, but then you saw this film, and then you got paired with, what do you remember your first experience watching it?
I do remember the first time watching it, and I had the privilege of watching it in a room alone by myself, so I could sob repeatedly and pause it and, take my time to get through it. I'm a parent, and it just struck me seeing how those parents were talking about their kids and what they had hopes and dreams for, and then those being taken away. And for me, one of the things we really strive for at the center is to keep people sort of front of mind that all of the data that we talk about are real people. They're the lives of people, the family, the community, their friends, and lives are shattered in an instant when someone uses a firearm to harm themselves or others. We're talking here in the context of school shooting, but a lot of folks don't know the leading cause of firearm death in the U.S. is actually suicide, and making sure that we are having programs and processes to separate someone who's in crisis from using a firearm, either against themselves or someone else. But this film, I think, really brings people in a way that you can't reach them otherwise, a much more compelling way to connect and hopefully activate people. A problem we have had for a long time in this space is we have really good breadth of support. I told you earlier how many people generally support the kinds of policies that we're working to advance, but people don't always feel activated. They may say, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I'm not opposed to it, or I support it. But whether or not they actually do something, take an action in response to that support, we've lagged behind a little bit. And we've made some important gains after Parkland and March for Our Lives and Students Demand Action and things. But I think a film like this is going to reach people in a different way, and thinking about the security and the safety we want for our kids, hopefully will again, activate people to actually make a change.
And I'll just add one of the things that I've found in having, I think we've had over 85 screenings now of the film, is that especially when we show the film to young people, the reaction is just like people just raise their hand and they say, tell me what to do. What do I do? I want to help. And that gives us a lot of hope.
Well, Mia, you're a young person who's raised your hand. What would you say to that in terms of moving away from just the sadness of this to what to do?
There are so many amazing organizations out there. I do a lot of work with Students Demand Action, which is under Everytown for Gun Safety, and I lead my chapter at Brown. I also started one in high school, and I think it's so accessible, especially now with, you could start a Students Demand Action chapter with just a few clicks on a website, and then they send you a box and they teach you exactly how to do it. Whether that means getting on a phone call with someone like me who's already done it before, or people at the organizing level. And I think you'll be surprised when you do something like that, or maybe there's already a chapter at your school that you can join, how many people agree with you. We've had ups and downs of numbers at Brown and at Saugus before that, where everyone agrees and everyone, is on the same page, and people are typically excited to help. Our Students Demand Action chapter is alive and well and thriving right now, and we're going to the State House in 2 weeks to lobby for bills in Rhode Island. And people want to learn how to do more. And it's never once been like, oh, this meeting only had 10 people, we should give up. It's always been, well, there's 10 of us here, how can we make a difference? And I think getting involved on an organizing level, a grassroots level, especially as a student, is so easy. And it really is never easier than when you're in undergrad or high school or a graduate student to start a chapter, and you could just do it with your friends.
Well, I see we have some questions, and I don't think there's any way I'm not going to start with you. So please, what's your name, first of all?
My name is Owen.
Owen, welcome to Hopkins. Welcome to this. Please, what's your question?
Was it easy or difficult to find the families in the film? Like, how was that? Like, how did you find the families?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Steve Hartman, the reporter in the film, he wrote letters to all the families who had lost a child since Sandy Hook, which was, I don't know how many years ago, but 2012, and he was starting to get yeses, and they went to 4 rooms, and the families that were saying yes were families that were saying, we want our children to be remembered. We don't want them to be forgotten. And then there were other families who, some families have packed up the room, or because for socioeconomic reasons, they couldn't hold on to the room, or they decided to move. So there were a lot of families that didn't have the room anymore, or there were families that just didn't respond. And I think, honestly, I feel like if I received a letter like that, I don't know if I would have responded. But there were 8 families that said yes, and 4 of them are in the film, and the other 4 were photographed prior to the film. So at the end of the film, when you see the stack of photo books, there are 8 books, and those are all 8 children who were part of this photo project. So we included all the families in the photo project, and 4 of them in the film, because we started filming after the first 4 had already been photographed.
Owen, first of all, thank you, and good shirt. What did the film mean to you? I'm just curious, or what did you take away from the film?
I'm not sure. It felt close to me as a child in a school. It's something I think about sometimes.
Well, I hope you've got your parents and you're not alone, and obviously you got people like Mia and Cass who are thinking about it a lot too. But I thank you for coming tonight and for your question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You, sir, also have a tough act to follow, but please, your question.
Well, I'm a dad, so I was crying too. It sounds like Steve Hartman had set up had started this and then brought you on, and I'm just curious what surprised you about the experiences that you had on this film.
Well, I'll say that I was away from. I have 2 little girls, a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old. She just turned 10 a couple of days ago, and I had to be away from my family quite a bit for this film over the last couple of years, and I was never so happy to come home as I was on this project. every time I came home from either filming or from screenings, I just had this deep, deep gratitude for what I have, and it's something I never felt so deeply, and that was sort of a beautiful thing, but also born out of this tragedy, and born out of spending time with these people whose lives have been torn apart by gun violence.
Thank you, sir, for your question. And if there's any other questions, I do want to ask Josh, as a filmmaker, there's always that thing, like that last thing you keep in your film. You love it so much, it's that hard thing to cut. And I'm always just curious, as a filmmaker, what was that thing that you really had to struggle with? Do we keep this? I love this, but it strengthens the film to let it go. And what was that decision like?
Well, we kind of always knew that we would not include the report, Hartman's report, and that was an early decision. Was like, if we end right before he delivers it, I thought that always sort of worked. I'm trying to remember. There were the thing that was hard was for each of the 4 kids, we had so many rich details of their lives, little things about their rooms, like Jackie, her closet is color coded and organized in like the most perfect way. And, all the kids had tons of details like that I just was in love with, and I felt like helped us understand who the kids were. But as we edited the film down, some of that just had to come out because we felt like we knew who they were, and we needed to, like I said, leave the space and the openness. And so we took some of the details out and left us to be alone in the rooms, in a sense. And that was hard to cut those out because I loved those details. That's what helped me to understand these 4 kids and to sort of fall in love with these 4 kids. And so that was hard, but I knew that it was the right thing for the film. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Mia, we spoke earlier about, well, I see we got a question. So I'm going to ask that. I'll save my question, and please.
2 questions. I know you brought Jackie's mother to the Academy Awards with you, if I'm correct, and I wondered how the families feel about the film, the families that saw it, and if they're feeling that there's any hope for gun sense solutions.
Thank you. We brought all the families to the Academy Awards, and the siblings of the kids. So we had, I don't know, something like 20 family members with us. I think we had all four of Dominic's brothers were there, and it was really kind of amazing to be together and also complicated, and I remember the morning of the Oscars, we knew that if we won, we were going to have Gloria come up on stage. Gloria is Jackie's mom, and we knew that she was going to come up on stage with us and say some things about Jackie. And I remember saying to Gloria that morning, how will you feel if we don't win? And she looked at me and she said, Josh, I've grown very accustomed to disappointment in my life. And I just thought in that moment, oh my God, we have to win. But really, we felt this pressure, that we had brought these families to Los Angeles, and if we didn't win, they would be disappointed. at the same time, we knew we had technically like a 1 in 5 chance of winning, but we were all praying because we knew not only would, they have a moment to hear their children's names read on stage, but it would just be an opportunity to shine a brighter light on the issue. And when Gloria went on stage, that moment really became viral, and it was a big thing. We've heard that from Gloria that she heard that from some GVP, some gun violence prevention groups, that there's been an uptick in interest and outreach to them since she gave her speech, including from conservative bodies. So it seems like it had an impact. And I do think that the families have some hope. All of them are working on this issue. All 4 families in our film have started foundations and are actively working to create change, and they want to be a part of it. So they do have hope.
Thank you. Please.
So I got the invitation for this event because I'm on the listserv of the center, and I RSVP to come before the Oscars, and then you won the award. I'm wondering, do you have a new strategy? Did you come up with something after now you have this movie as an award? I'm a public health practitioner. I was going to come because of the center, so you have some targeted audience. But I think now we have the potential to draw more attention, to take it out to more people who will be coming to it for that. Have you thought about that? Is there a new strategy now that you have the Oscar in your pocket?
Yeah, no, it is. It's an opportunity, and we see it as that. We see it as, okay, now we can build on this moment. There have been a series of moments along the way since the film came out in December, and this is a new moment to build on. So we are planning to come back to Washington in May for a congressional screening, and. And I believe we have a second congressional screening in the works as well, which is going to happen after that. And we also have a photo exhibit of the photos from the film. It's a public outdoor exhibit that has been traveling around. It's been in New York and LA. And today we found out we're going next to Austin and to Denver. And we're going to continue going from city to city with these photographs that will be accessible to people in public places. And, the film is on Netflix. It has received many millions of views and even more since the Oscars. And I'll just say, like, all of us can be a part of it. If you post about the film on social media, tell people about it, tell them to watch it. It makes a difference. And so we can all be a part of this.
So one of the hardest things about public health is when we're doing our jobs really well, bad things don't happen. And it's hard to motivate people to take action when bad things aren't happening. But something like this, the movement that I think is going to grow out of this film, creates an opportunity to advance the life-saving policies that we've been researching at our center and are poised to advance federally and at the state level. And really just thinking about how we can use windows of opportunity that open conversations to reach across the aisle, to engage folks who might not otherwise have been interested in having these conversations, to bring forward the evidence that we have generated at our center and places across the country to really, hopefully, make more of these things not happen, which is, again, our core goal in public health.
Please.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Spiguglia. I'm a PhD student here at Hopkins and affiliated with the Center for Gun Violence Solutions. I lost my son Oscar to gun violence in 2015, and this film is just incredible. I also had the privilege of watching it alone in a room, pausing to sob, and I'm just so glad that it won and it's getting the attention. It matters to be witnessed, and you had said something earlier that said, obviously, you know, the people in this room haven't been in a shooting. And something I think about a lot, is actually odds are not necessarily that way. And I would be interested in knowing who here has lost someone to gun violence or been personally involved in a shooting, because I bet there are lots of hands that go up. And support for survivors is violence prevention, and it's really important that we witness and support survivors. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much. And I think, speaking as a survivor of gun violence, there is so many resources out there, not only within your own state, but also nationally. If you ever want to not necessarily get involved with gun violence prevention advocacy, because I know that's not the route for everyone, but get involved get involved with a network of survivors that somewhat understand what you're going through or have been down a similar path. The Everytown for Gun Safety Survivor Network is always there. Moments That Survive, they both do very great work and are able to connect people from across the country who have experienced similar things. So even if advocacy is not the route for you, because it's not for everyone, as a survivor, there's definitely options to still get connected to people that can help your healing. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there.
I would just add, sometimes, sort of building off Mia's point, not everybody wants to call a state legislator, not everybody wants to show up and give testimony. But what we talk about at the center is that everybody has a role in safe gun storage. Whether you personally own guns and can take strategies to store your guns safely, locked up, separate from ammunition, and unloaded, or if you know people who own guns, even if you don't personally own them, I'm sure you know at least one other person who does, and thinking about how we can normalize conversations around storing guns safely, normalizing conversations the same way we talk about not drinking and driving or wearing seatbelts or bike helmets, making it part of a normal safety conversation, because safe gun storage does save lives. It can provide space and time between somebody who is thinking of harming themselves or others and that firearm. It can minimize unintentional shootings by young kids, school shootings if young people take guns and are taking them to harm others, and theft. Again, keeping guns locked up makes it much harder for them to be stolen and diverted into the underground gun market. So if you're thinking about what can I do, what's an action that I can take, ask people, do you have guns in the home? How are they stored? People own guns for lots of different reasons. They own them for home defense. Did you know that there are quick access safes that you can bolt down to the side of your bed or in a drawer where you can access a gun quickly if you need it, but nobody else can get into it? And really taking some ownership to drive these conversations forward and feel like there is something that we can do, that we can be empowered to reduce gun violence.
Thank you. Thank you all. Let's hear it for our panel. I want to start actually by thanking the audience. This is a powerful film, and it brings up a lot, and it's an important discussion to have. And thank you for being here and for coming out tonight. We don't want the conversation to end here. It shouldn't end here, right? We'll continue out in the lobby. Thank you, and our thoughts to you and to everybody else here. And again, the whole point of Stories That Matter is they get us to think and to do. So again, I know Cass and the center provided these brochures. She's got one. To please take a look at that. I want to thank Mia for being with us. It means so much. And I just have to say, as in a small way, a Hopkins representative, you could be a student here. You might find one or two people who might write a really good recommendation for you. So, just putting it out there. Cass, thank you so much. Thank you and the work that you do at the center. And thank you to Joshua Seftel for bringing this film to us and to everyone. It's really something to be proud of for you. And I know your mom is here, so to be proud of that as well.
I was just going to say that I wanted to acknowledge that my mom is here, and this is the first time we've actually seen the film together. So it's a cool moment for us.
That's great. And if you happen to be back here for any congressional screenings and you just need a place to chill, you can come here. Okay? It's really special. I want to also thank Netflix for supporting your film and for bringing this out, and for we've done a number of films with Netflix, so always for supporting us at Hopkins. It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Netflix, and congratulations on this film. I want to say something which you heard before, but it's pretty cool. This is it's Hopkins' 150th year anniversary. For Stories That Matter, it's only our third year, so we got a lot of catching up to do. But I wanted to say we're really proud that this is the first film that we've brought here for the 150th year anniversary, and I don't think we could pick a better, more impactful film. So thank you.
Thank you.
We are also honored because this is the first screening, the big public screening you guys have had since the Oscar Award. So congratulations to you and Avi. There you go. Never tires of hearing Oscar winner, so that's really great. I also I just want to again just say thank you to all of you for coming, and we have a reception outside, and we'd be honored if you would join us and keep the conversation going. So thank you again to everyone. Thank you. It was lovely.